So welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Two Roads Leadership live stream. I'm here today with Mr. Oliver Chang, who is our Chief Operations Officer. I think you came here in 2014, Oliver, right?
That's right, yeah.
So about 6 years and seems like 6 days, I'm sure. So the focus of this series is talking to our government contracting peers about how to do government contracting and how to be better at it. And so we're focused today on operations, since Oliver is our operations officer. And so with that, we'll jump right in with both feet. So Oliver, it's been a while since I've seen you in person. How's everything going?
Yeah, it feels like it's been 30 minutes almost. No, it's been going really good. Yes, joined in 2014, right after I got out of the Army. So came back to Fredericksburg, which has really been home for me for most of my life. But it's been a great 6 years. Really learned a lot, and certainly not the best ever at operations and program management, but we certainly try to do our best and do what we can for our customers every day. But it's been a great 6 years, incredible learning experience. And part of being in the business that we're in, as a small business, family-owned business, we really do everything. We talk about it all the time, but whether it's operations, business development, proposals, HR, we all have a hand in everything, which is a good, unique experience to really learn the business.
Cool. So you're part of the executive leadership of the company, so with specific focus on operations. So how does your job differ from the CEOs or from the business development or many of the others? What's your work breakdown structure?
Yeah, being that we're small, I do get involved and support in all those different areas, but primarily I engage on a day-to-day basis with our program managers, our employees, supervisors, make sure that they're doing the right thing for the government customers, that they're staying engaged with them, especially right now, during COVID, when I would say all but, one or two of our contracts are really on site. We're almost entirely still virtual. Staying engaged with our customers is even more important than before. We just had several conversations with a couple of our programs where trying to maintain that perception that, hey, we are there, because when you can't see the people that you're working with and you can't touch them and walk down and see them in their queue, if they take a 15 or 20 minute coffee break, or they have a crying kid in the background, and they're not responding to emails right away, there might be that perception of, hey, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, when really they are. So maintaining that communication is even more important right now, when we're not able to see, touch, and feel each other on a day-to-day basis. So being overly communicative, and just being realistic. Hey, I've got something coming up, nothing I can do about it. I'm going to be offline for a little while. Communicating that to our customers, making sure that they know what to expect, that we're still there for them, we're still doing our jobs, we're completely effective, but certainly some different perspectives and some challenges with the remote work going on.
Yeah, so I see all the internet or the email traffic coming across my desk, coming in from the customers, coming in from the team. Because you're primarily our face to both of those in the operations perspective, visiting the teams, visiting the customers. I see accolades coming across my desk all the time about the great work you're doing and the great work the company's doing. Could you offer some advice on how do you keep those relationships going so strong between the team, who's our employee team, but also the customer team? Any secrets you have?
Yeah, so I think for the employee engagement side, that's been really an ownership level down. You, Brittany, our CEO, making sure that, hey, we're taking care of them, and that started really when this whole pandemic hit, and it started with sending them care packages, masks, wherever they need, so that we can help them take care of themselves and their family, and they can focus on their jobs and still be able to do that. So I think that's a big big part of it is making sure that our employees are taken care of, that they know that we're here for them. A lot of the questions coming out of them is, hey, as things open back up, I still have concerns about going back to work, right? What can we do about that? And we did an employee survey probably about a month ago, and it was really split, where we had about half our employees saying, yeah, I'm good to go back, and the other half saying, I'm absolutely not good to go back. But it's been really encouraging because, from the government side, they have a perspective of, hey, as we open back up, we're going to be accommodating to people who have concerns about this, because everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's facing the same challenges. Whether you're a government employee or a contractor, you still have the same challenges getting childcare for your children right now, because stuff isn't open yet. So all that's still going on. From a customer engagement perspective, we're obviously not able to go on site and see our clients as we normally would, the way we're used to. But at the end of the day, we're here to help them solve problems. We're all working towards the same mission to accomplish their goals, complete their missions, implement the systems that they're trying to implement. So being there for them and really solving their problems. And it comes down to flexibility, I think, and being able to work with them. So we have several contracts where, we've worked with our cores and our contracting officers to modify contracts to really get them what they need. We're completely open to that. And a lot of it is facilitating that dialogue. Hey, this is what I need. How can you help me do this? And we'll facilitate something between contracting officer and just really make sure that, hey, if you're paying for a service from us, if you're paying for us to come in and help you, that you're actually getting what you need to accomplish your mission.
Yeah, you reminded me of something that's probably not unique to us, but certainly something that we're very focused on is Alicia's handwritten notes. Our chairwoman handwrites notes to all of our employees at birthdays and anniversaries, and their children as well. So I think we do have a pretty strong team with a pretty strong culture, and so thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, it's a lot of these little things that that make a big impact. It's pretty incredible to see that, but it doesn't take a whole lot from us to do things like that. It certainly takes some time and some thought, but I think the impact that it has on our employees and the culture is just you can't really put a value on it.
Mm-hmm. So when I did see you 30 minutes ago, I talked to you about an operation success story. Anything that pops to mind about something that went really well, or even if you want to share something that went really bad when it shouldn't have? Talk to us a little bit about that. Some of the successes and some of the scars.
Yeah. So one thing popped to mind. It was I think it ultimately turned into a success, but this whole thing around CPARs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got a CPARs rating for a contract, which was it certainly wasn't bad, but it was not as good as what we were hoping to achieve, especially for the work that we thought we were doing on the program and some of the satisfaction of the core. We got it. Like I said, it wasn't a bad CPAR, but it wasn't at the level we wanted to see it. And so we opened up a dialogue with the contracting officer that issued it, and went back and forth a few times. And I worked with the program manager, and we came to the table and kind of had some mutual understanding of, hey, this is where we kind of rated ourselves and where we how we thought we performed the last year. And from there, really just opening the dialogue, talking with the government, and helping them see our perspective. We were able to get several satisfactories bumped up to exceptionals. I think 2 satisfactories bumped up to exceptionals, and a satisfactory bumped up to a good. And this kind of happened at the same time that we did some CPARS training that was put on by some former government officials who manage CPARS. But one of the lessons learned from that is manage it proactively. For everybody who's seeing this, GSA says do your self-assessments and then send them to the government at the end of each period of performance. So based on some lessons learned from that training, and then from this interaction, the success story, where we were able to get a CPARS upgraded. We're managing that a lot more proactively now. So our program managers are cataloging their success stories. They're capturing their metrics against the deliverables and the performance quality metrics for the contract, and making sure that at the end of each period of performance, we're actually sending that to go, hey, this is how we assess ourselves and the work that we did. Hopefully you agree with this. If you disagree, let's have a dialogue. Let's figure out, where we're not seeing eye to eye, so that we are getting the rating that we feel like we deserve, and that you're, seeing the contributions that we delivered across the program.
Mm-hmm. Great. Talk to us a little bit about time management. I know you got infinite requirements and very finite time, both administrative, behind the scenes, and then out front with your customers and with your teams. How do you balance all that?
Are we talking all professionally or?
Personally and professionally, because I know you also have 4 children and a teenager in the house, your younger sister.
Yeah, so I've got four kids, 4 biological kids, 8, 6, 4, and 1. And then I've got my sister who's a teenager, and she lives with us as well. And so it's definitely challenging. I think most days the hours of 8 to 5 are more relaxing, even though we're working, than once we step foot through the door. But I think trying to take care of the stuff during the day, the work stuff during the day between the hours of 8 and 5, and then getting home and being able to focus on home and the kids is really important, because no matter what anybody says, you can't work and take care of your kids at the same time. There's got to be, without some kind of degradation to both, right? So then the kids aren't happy, and you're not able to focus your time on your work. So I think blocking out those days when you can, be able to take care of your work. And obviously, Brittany and I work together, so we have to block off time sometimes where Brittany needs to go in early. I think Monday, yesterday and today, she went in the office at 5 or 6 in the morning because she has some stuff going on at work with ISO audits this week. So she's going in early. I'm staying with the kids in the morning, and then coming in, at a regular time to take care of that. But working with your spouse, because this is a partnership, the most important partnership, I think, you would agree with that, and that we're working on that together, time managing together as a team, and to take care of work, family, and self. So I've played golf like 3 times in the past year and a half, which is a record for me. I don't think I've ever played that much. I'm actually starting to enjoy it, even though I'm terrible at it. But yeah, it's really, trying to focus on work while I'm at work, trying to focus on the kids while I'm at home with the kids, and then making sure that I'm, devoting adequate time to both. And it's really not easy, especially now. You're working from home, your kids are at home, and those lines are really blurred.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've been able to come into the office this whole time, since we are a small business, family owned. We're already together, so it didn't matter whether we're home or here. We were able to come in and get some of that separation.
If I get sick, then you're probably going to be getting sick too, regardless of whether I'm in the office or not.
Matter of fact, we have to decide what time the boys are coming over tonight, because they're sleeping over tonight.
Yeah.
So if we have a lot of transitioning people that we talk to, they're deciding, do they even want to come into this industry? They're deciding, do I want to go large business, small business? Perhaps even, do I want to start my own thing? What insights would you have for those 3 options? Coming into the industry or not, small business, large business, and or starting your own small business? Be interested to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, so actually, so I think, first of all, this is a great industry. It's absolutely one where you get your foot in the door, and it's a career. If you start at the age of 18, 20, 22, or you're coming right out of the military, it's the federal contracting industry is one where you can really get your foot in the door and build a career out of it, which and one that is relatively recession and pandemic proof, right? I think we've seen that in the last couple of months. So we actually just sent an offer letter to somebody today who's coming on as a junior analyst on one of our contracts. Has a little bit of federal contracting experience, but not a lot, but great personality, great background, some good work experience. It's an entry-level position. We actually just talked about this yesterday with him, and I told him, look, if you come into this business, you can build a career out of it. It's about what you make it. And if you come in with a great attitude, good personality, and you're helping clients solve their problems, you're going to go places. It's just a matter of getting a few years of work experience under your belt, and you'll be doing this. And in a few years, you'll be an intermediate person in your role, and then you'll be a senior person in your role, and you'll be very successful. And this is a guy who just moved back here to the DC area from California because his family members that he was working with were laid off due to COVID. Mm-hmm. So we've been very fortunate through this whole thing where our contracts aren't being cut significantly. We've had some impact, especially with some training that can't happen in person. So we have to find a way to do those virtually. But very, very fortunate on the whole to have pretty minimal impacts to the business and to our employees. So I think we've been very fortunate. To the other piece about large or small, I really think, so I spent my whole time in federal contracting with a small business here. So I can only offer that perspective. And I would say that this certainly isn't true of all small businesses or all large businesses. This isn't to speak badly about large businesses or anything, but I really like the flexibility that we have as a small business, whether it's in our price structure. When we bid on requirements, we can be very flexible on how we bid our price because our overhead is a lot lower than a large business's. We can also be very accommodating on what we offer the government and how we can work with them. If they want to change something in a contract, get 6 months or a year down the road and they realize, hey, yeah, what we're getting from you isn't exactly what we need. Maybe the statement of work wasn't exactly what we wanted. Let's work together and figure out how we can change it within the confines of FAR and what the contracting officer will allow to really get what we need. And I think that's been really rewarding to be able to do something like that and come in on the other side and have the client say, yeah, this is great. Really appreciate you, working with us. Sometimes there's that hesitancy to actually see us as a partner, somebody that they can trust and really work with, and to kind of break down those barriers and show that, hey, we're in this together. We're trying to achieve the same mission, the same goal. Has been a really rewarding experience. And I think a lot of large businesses are able to do that as well. But certainly from what I've seen with Flatter as a small business, we've been able to do that a lot.
I'm glad you brought that up because you've reminded me of one of my operation success stories. And it's all about building that human-to-human relationship with your customer, because there is that natural hesitancy. The FAR, which is several thousand pages, and tell us how to do business with our customer and how our customer does business with us. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to that human-to-human relationship. And one of the things that we've done really well, and I know you're really good at this, is building a strong bond between yourself and your customers where they look at you as a true partner. It's so nice when that's clicking, and it's so not nice when it's not clicking. Mm-hmm. We had a particular customer we were working with. We came in as a dark horse in the race, not likely to win, did good in oral presentation, which we could talk about in another time, how to prepare for orals. It's a whole science unto itself. Mm-hmm. And we engaged with the program manager, the government program manager, in a very appropriate yet very intense relationship, helping him sort through his challenges, goals, and objectives and key results. And it was wonderful working there. ultimately he got promoted to senior executive and moved on. And there's kind of a leadership void there now, but I wouldn't have changed that for anything. We're still standing on firm ground, even with the leadership void there. I was talking to the acting program manager this morning for an hour. So we still have that closest of relationship there, but miss his leadership. So you read hundreds of resumes. If I'm putting together my resume to come to work for you, what's some tips that you might offer me on? I'm a transitioning veteran. Let's say you transitioned as a veteran into this industry. What are some thoughts in your head about writing your resume and in your interviews?
Yeah, and I know Joe Cowell's on here. He probably looks at more resumes than I do. Maybe a resume call conversation with just Joe. But I would say, it's interesting because, when I was in the Army, we had contractors that we worked with all the time, right? Whether it's the maintenance guys, the health and safety, the risk, the sexual harassment, trainers, whatever it was, there's contractors everywhere. But when you're on active duty, you don't know anything about that side of the business, although it's everywhere. So it's if I knew then what I know now, it would be completely different. But when you're coming out of the military and you're putting together a military resume, you talk about your accomplishments in the military. So you might talk about setting up ranges or running convoys or live fire exercises, whatever it is. And without understanding that those things translate very well to the business side of things from a project management perspective, right? Being able to set up schedules, execute to them, coordinate with stakeholders from different units, or you call them units in the military, but offices, departments, and put together project plans and execute projects. So a lot of times I'll see resumes and it'll talk very tactically, right? Led this many soldiers, Marines, airmen, conducted this many raids, which isn't directly relevant. But if you talk about that from a project management or program management perspective and say, hey, I led these teams, I brought them together, I developed plans, executed plans, managed the schedules, managed the risk, then that's a completely different resume. You're telling the same story in a completely different way that's relevant to somebody who's going to be looking at resumes and hiring. So I think taking out some of that, the military experience is excellent, right? It's always a good thing, but taking away some of that military jargon, that lingo, and putting it in a business perspective, I think helps, especially when you have recruiters who might not necessarily have a business background, to be able to see it more clearly and how that's applicable to project management. I'd also say a big thing we look for is how long people have spent at each of their jobs. I think in federal contracting, there's a demand for skilled labor. So a lot of times you have to overlook the fact that maybe somebody only spent 6 months at a position for the last 3 or 4 positions. And even if you see that, it could be that a contract ended for lack of funding, or they came on at the last 6 months when there are only 6 months left on the contract. So you have to dig in a little bit and find out, okay, why is this person jumping around from job to job? Maybe it wasn't that, they did that by choice. Maybe they had no choice in the matter. But if we do talk to some of these candidates and they say, I was here for 6 months, I didn't like it, and I moved on, and you see a pattern of that, that's typically a red flag. Yeah, it's a lot of work to hire somebody. There's certainly a recruitment cost to it. Getting them ramped up on the program, developing that trust between them and the client, and then to have that go away after 4 months, 6 months is just not a good use of resources and time. So I would say that's probably the second biggest thing I look for, is just how long they stay at a place, how reliable they are. You know, to really, for some of these people to really want to build a career with a company, rather than just looking for, hey, what's that next stone I can jump to get where I want to get in my career.
Mm-hmm. So if I have a job or I'm transitioning out and I'm offered a job by somebody in your industry, what are some of the considerations I should take into account? I know salary's right there, but what are some other considerations that if you're looking at a potential opportunity that you should consider?
Yeah, so really, that's a really good question. So I think salary is certainly the thing that's most obvious in everyone's mind, but there's other things, kind of quality of life type questions. So what's the commute, right? How far are you? And we look at that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We know that the job is at Coast Guard headquarters, and this person's in Fredericksburg. It's probably not going to work out long term, just because it's a heck of a commute, right? So looking at that from a realistic perspective, even if the candidate says, "Yeah, I have no problem driving 2 hours every day. I'll do it. I have no problems." We have to make that determination on our side, right? Is that really something that is sustainable in the long term, where 6 months from now, they're going to find something that's 20 minutes from the house and they're going to jump ship. I think a big piece of it ultimately is the people that you're working with. So, what's the government leadership like? That's really important. What's the culture like in the organization? Are they looking at you as, task rabbits, where I'm going to just give you tasks and I expect you to crunch numbers and enter the numbers in the spreadsheet and then spit out the information out, and then I'll give you the next task? Or am I looking for you to really help me solve problems in a partnership that's collaborative? So that's a really good question. What's the relationship like with the government client?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you working with on a day-to-day basis? What are the challenges?
Yeah, a couple things that come to mind for me are, is it a real job, or is it, if I win the contract, I have the job? Now, we see a lot of contingent offers out there, right?
Yeah, and we try to be transparent about that, because we do a lot of recruiting for contingent positions, because that's what government RFPs require, right? I think the government's been burned enough in the past where people just submit random resumes that they find online, and they didn't require a letter of intent. And so we're seeing the effect of that, which is everything requires local intent. And you have some RFPs that require 5 or 10 resumes. So it's a lot of recruiting work on the front end, but we try to be transparent. Joe does a lot of recruiting for us, and he's very open about that. Hey, this is a contingent position. What happens is we'll bid you in our resume, and if we win, a month, 2 months, or 3 months from now, when we find out, then we'll send you an offer letter.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to have those discussions about salary beforehand, so we can bid a rate in the proposal that we can actually hire that person after we win, and then once we win, we'll send them an offer. And I think we've been pretty good about that.
Yeah, another piece of it is, if it is an actual contract and it's not a contingency, how much room is on the front of it, right? Where are they at in the base year or the option years? And
Yep.
how many of those option years are out there?
Yep. No, I would say if you're looking, if you're relatively new to this industry, that's absolutely a question you have to ask every recruiting manager, is how much time is left on the contract. And we talk to a lot of people. Hey, why are you looking for a new job? And they'll say, well, hey, I just came on this position. The contract ends in 3 months, so I'm already looking for something different.
I know we had a resignation a few weeks ago for personal reasons, and there were only 3 or 4 months left on the contract. There's no way we were going to hire somebody to put that in there. That's just not part of our culture that we would do that. But people need to be mindful that others might just plug them in for that 3 years and hope for the best, or 3 months and hope for the best.
Yep. Yeah, and in that situation, we're very open. We say, hey, this is there's X months left on the contract, and I tell everyone when we bid on a recompete, there's never a guarantee that we're going to win a contract recompete. If anybody tells you, hey, we've got this in the bag, we're going to win the recompete, they're blowing smoke, because you just can't know. There's too many factors in play, and you just can't guarantee a recompete, no matter how much work you've done, how much capture, how good of a relationship you have with the client, how confident you are. You can't guarantee that.
Yeah, you just made me laugh, because that's the perennial red flag, right? The person who walks in your office and says, I got a lock on, and then fill in the blank. Yep. I got a lock on this contract. I got a lock on this program manager. I have a lock on this customer.
I think if half of those ever came to fruition, the ones that we went through,
Well, you bring up a good point. Something that we talk about a lot, and that is the 2 to 3 year business cycle that we're on. If I were to use an analogy to planting seeds, hoping and nourishing those seeds for 2 to 3 years, and then hoping they bear fruit, with never having any guarantee, regardless of how well you're performing or how strong your past performance is. How do you manage that kind of environment, constantly planting seeds, hoping 2 to 3 years they'll bear some fruit?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to your earlier question of, people looking to start a business here.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple people, I had a friend from the Army thinking about doing the same thing. And I remember we had those conversations with him and explaining to him just that, look, if you're working right now, don't quit your job and go all in on this just yet. Lay the foundation for it. Do it on the weekends, do it on your off time. Make sure you don't have any conflict with what you're doing, because it'll take time to get revenue, right? From the time you open your business, and from the time you submit a proposal. Something could be locked up in protest for 6 months or more. So I just say we try to be patient, and we try not to have this kind of woe is me perspective on things and say, why does this always happen to us? Because that's certainly not the case. I think if you look across the industry, everyone's facing the same challenges. It's not just the things that we win that get protested, right? Everything gets protested, it seems like nowadays. It just so happens that, hey, if you're winning, then people are going to be looking for you to try to take you down. But we try not to have that perspective. I think it's certainly part of the business that we're all in. And just like you have to bid on something to win it, just like you have to recruit 1, 5, or 10 resumes to win something, sometimes a proposal protest is part of that process of winning a proposal. You almost have to account for that in some of the larger things that we go after, that, okay, this is likely going to get protested, and be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's an interesting change in the market in the last several years. When we first came into this business 19 years ago, protesting was a rarity. And if you did, you went in with the notion that you may very well be punished, not directly, but indirectly. But now it seems almost like a de facto bridge, where if I'm the incumbent and I lose, it's a natural business decision now to protest, which only elongates the process even more.
Yeah, and I've talked to some people who worked at a couple large businesses 10 years ago, and they said just that, hey, we had a policy back then, whenever then was, that we did not protest. It was not something we would do. But if you you could look at the GAO bid protest docket today and see what's out there, and that's certainly not the case. Whether it's a very small business or the premier consulting companies for the federal government, protesting is part of I would say the business cycle that we're in right now.
Yeah. So another thing that we talk a lot about are the 5 phases of our business, from identification of opportunities to qualification, and then moving, if it qualifies, into capture into proposal, and then proposal into execution, and then across 5 stakeholder groups, which are ourselves, our own team, our teammates, which is a blog unto itself, a live stream unto itself. Our customers, obviously, we're delivering to our customers, the small business offices that we work with, if you are a small business, and then the contracting shops. From your operations chair, which of those are most critical if I'm thinking about getting into this business?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's 10 things at once. I apologize.
Well, so I guess from what I've seen, you know, a lot of the people that are starting companies, it typically starts with a relationship at either the at the client level, the government program manager, or the core, or you know, the end customer who's actually receiving the service. Usually they have a relationship there. Either they came out of that organization while they were on active duty or as a government employee. They have that relationship, and that's kind of what they're basing that, or that's the route that they're going for their first, you know, federal government contract, whether they're a prime or a sub. And usually that's the value proposition, right? When somebody comes to us and say, "Hey, we've got this on lock. Hey, I have the relationship. I know what they're looking for. I understand their pain points and their problems, and that's why I think I have a chance of helping you win this, whether as a sub or a prime." I think that's probably the piece that people look to most. But as we've seen over the, as I've seen over the last 6 years, there's a lot more to it. I think that's definitely a big part of it. But we've seen a lot of cases where low price wins the day. It doesn't matter how good you have. If you have a price that's 30% cheaper, you're going to get it. So, you know, and that's where I say there's so many unknown factors and things at play that you can never guarantee that you're going to win a contract. There's just no way, unless it's sole source to you, or you know, there's some kind of J&A for limited competition. Yeah,
we'll get into shaping next week with Joe, who's our business development lead. So I know we're 19 years old now. We don't have any of our original revenue. And
right,
this industry is so cyclical. And it's not cyclical just for presidential administrations, because that certainly impacts it. What is the current administration? And I know the last administration focused a lot on insourcing. And so suddenly we lost 20% of our workforce overnight when the president decided to insource contractors into the federal government. Because there are certain benefits to being a contractor, certain benefits to being government. So they were able to allure some of our work away. And then during the LPTA days of 2015, so that was about 2010 timeframe, about 2015, they decided to go lowest price technically acceptable, which means you get a Yugo instead of a Cadillac. If you wanted a Cadillac, you're getting a Yugo or a Hyundai. We lost 40% of our revenue in 6 months. Lowest price technically acceptable. We're the incumbent, knocking it out of the park. Customer loves us. Suddenly, somebody walks in 30% cheaper, has no experience, and we're on the street. And another point that came to mind while you were chatting about that is, having been a startup 19 years ago and incubating probably a dozen startups over the last 19 years, it's easy to get your first gig. Everybody has somebody who loves them and recognizes their value and wants them back or wants them to stay. It's that second gig that's a mountain. I always use the analogy of Tom Hanks trying to get off of that island. If you remember the movie Castaway,
we just watched that.
To the breaker, and then you get thrown back into shore. He'd get out to the breaker, and then he'd get thrown out to the shore until he finally figured out he had to put a sail on his raft. That's how starting a business is in this industry. It's easy to get a raft in the water,
and then and then you get out and you realize your wife left you and married another man, right?
So
to take that analogy one step further.
So talk a little bit. We got about a few minutes left here. Talk a little bit about being in business 19 years and still hustling. Have we gotten out to sea yet? Is it going waters yet?
No, I don't. I don't think so. And so I think you made me think of another thing that we've talked about a lot, which is going large or staying small, kind of trying to quote unquote plan for that, which I don't think you can, because just like you said, we could say, okay, based on the contracts that we have right now and when they end, our revenue for 2020 is going to be X amount, and our revenue for 2021 is going to be X amount based on what we win. But there's so many factors in play that you can't account for. Just like we lost we had a large contract end early because of president's different political opinions and priorities overseas, right? And that was 20 plus FTEs, which was significant.
Yeah.
So to say, okay, well, our revenue is this. We want to stay small under 16.5 million NAICS code or 27.5, whatever it might be. And therefore, we're not going to pursue these contracts purposely. And we're, so we don't bust these NAICS codes. I think that's just I don't think you can do that just because there's too many unknowns, because you could try that. And then through a series of unfortunate events, you find yourself, you lost 50% of your revenue because changing politics or lack of funding in your customer organizations or whatever else it could be. So I don't think we're out of there. I think we're going to keep hustling for a while. I think there is probably a threshold where you can get a little bit more comfortable where, you lose one or two contracts and you're not suddenly worried about your long-term viability as a company.
Yeah.
I don't know what that number is, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say for our first 10 years, we had sustaining streams of revenue that if they went away, we went away.
Exactly.
We're a little bit beyond that. It'll sting badly, but we're still a viable corporation. When you're early and you have 2 or 3 sources of revenue, that's a lot of risk consolidated in a very narrow revenue stream. And I know another thing we talk about all the time is our diversification and innovation. Do you specialize or do you stay eclectic, have a broad set of capabilities or a narrow set of capabilities? What are some of your thoughts on that as you help us build our pipeline going forward?
Yeah, I think, this is another thing that we've talked about a lot. And I think what we decided is, in order to go large and really break through that barrier of, what they call purgatory, because you're not small, and now you're competing against the billion-dollar companies out there, is you have to have some kind of capability or technology or something that differentiates you from everybody else. Without that, as a large business, without the small business socioeconomic advantages, it's really, really tough. And again, I'm saying that just from what I hear from others in the industry that are in that space, not having been there myself. But I think there's certainly enough work in the federal government where you could specialize on a very specific thing, and there's more than enough work in that area, whatever you choose, if it's your area of expertise, to sustain you and your company, as a small business. I think as you grow beyond that, you probably have to diversify. But just looking at us, it's more about relationships and partnering and capabilities and teammates than it is anything else. Because ultimately, the management structure, as a consulting company, as a program management company, it's about helping the government solve problems. Whether that's in IT or education and training, or counter IED training, engineering, whatever it is, you're doing the same fundamental things, which is program project management, helping them solve the problems and achieve their objectives. So I think we've shown that you could have a very eclectic portfolio of work, doing a lot of different things. You don't have to specify or specialize in one area unless that's what you want to do. But you can be fairly broad with a very wide capability set and still be very successful.
Yeah, thanks. I know that's been our experience anyway, that we have a pretty eclectic skill set, and we've never really focused or specialized in any particular customer or any particular specialization. So we have a broad diversity in our customer base and a broad diversity in our support services that we're delivering. And it's carried us through a lot of hard times that we may not have otherwise survived if we were specialized in one area, like knowledge management, for example. That was a strong revenue stream for us several years ago. Not a singular revenue stream, but if we had ever made it a singular revenue stream, here we are in 2020, and when's the last time you heard that word spoken, those two words spoken together, knowledge management? It's moved on, just like other things that are popular now and will fade away over time. So last question, I'll throw a grenade into the room. I apologize beforehand. So we hear a lot of talk about diversity, inclusion, and belonging now. And it's something very near and dear to my heart. You know my family. You know your family. What do those three words mean to you as not only a leader of a corporation with a diverse workforce and a diverse set of customer skills, but as a leader writ large in our nation?
Yeah, so it's a very relevant question, I think. So I think, in order to be successful in the business that we're in, you have to be able to understand different perspectives and different challenges across cultures, ethnicities, whatever it might be. Because if you look at any group, any organization, whether it's our customers in the federal government, it's incredibly diverse, right? Federal government's incredibly diverse, whether you're looking at GS6s or SESs. If you look at the military, any component, any service, it's incredibly diverse. So understanding that our customer base is that way, and understanding that our workforce is also very diverse, all right? Nobody comes from the same backgrounds. Everybody has challenges that they face, regardless of what their skin color is. I don't think, being that I'm a Chinese American of Chinese ethnicity, I have certainly unique experiences, but you can't say that, I'm privileged or unprivileged because of my skin color. And I would say that I haven't faced, challenges because of, my skin color. But it's interesting because I have young kids who are half Chinese and quarter Puerto Ricans. We call them Puerto Ricans, and they don't even understand, what it is, because it's taking over the news. If you watch news, if you pull up any news site, that's all they talk about race, like it's the biggest thing. But if you just talk to people in everyday life, it's a non-issue. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Brittany was bringing this up the other day. Hey, this stuff in the news is crazy. What's happening in the country? And I said, we just took 4 days. We drove from Virginia through West Virginia into Kentucky, stayed at campsites, all these different places, ate at all these restaurants. I was like, did you have a single negative interaction that entire time? Right? No, absolutely not. And you got me, who's Chinese, my sister's Chinese, my kids who can't really tell what they are, and my wife who's Hispanic. And I can say that day after day after day, right? Just living our lives, the people that we interact with, our circles in the stores and our local communities, I don't have any negative interactions. Quick story, I went to a campground on Friday. We just started, RV traveling, and we get there, we're there 30 minutes, and my kids are bouncing on this big trampoline thing. And they bonk heads with one of my second son bonk heads with another kid. and he splits his eye open right here, completely split open. It's bleeding like crazy. And I'm like, oh, he's going to have to get stitches. And we drove our RV. It's a big 32-foot Class A, and we have 7 people. It's hooked up, the awning's out. There's no way we can, unhook everything and make it to the urgent care in 45 minutes because he closed at 8 p.m. And so the dad of the other kid came over and said, hey, is he okay? I said, no, he's going to have to get stitches. I was like, it's pretty bad. He's like, I was like, do you have a vehicle? Do you drive a car? He goes, yeah. So you want to take my car? Right. So never knew the guy, just met him. And here he is. He gives me his keys to a 2019 Honda Pilot. And I take it 20 miles down the road with my kid who's bleeding out down his face. I'm gone for about 2 or 3 hours. Ultimately have to go to the emergency room because of the location and everything else. Get back around 10 o'clock, and he's like, hey, I'm just glad your kid's okay. Glad we could help, right? But I think as you talk to people and you ask them what their interactions are on a personal basis, day to day, and you're not looking at what's in the news and the 0.001% of negative interactions, because you look at a country of 320 million people, there's bound to be negative interactions. It's just going to happen. But if you don't focus on that and you think about, okay, what am I seeing in my local communities? What am I seeing from people? It's experiences like that, like I just had. It's incredible experiences of people helping each other.
No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that with us. Obviously, it's something that's on the nation's mind right now, and certainly on our minds as leaders of our company and leaders of our nation. So thanks for that. We're about out of time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I can't thank you enough for spending this time with us. I know your insights are going to be invaluable to broad stakeholder groups. People are thinking about coming into this business. People are thinking about starting this business, or even people who are trying to get better at doing what they're doing already in this business. So thanks for your time, and thanks for your leadership.
No, thank you.
Thanks for growing that beautiful family of yours. Next week, as you've mentioned a couple of times, we're having Mr. Joe Cabell on here, who is our Chief Strategic Officer. He probably doesn't even know that yet. We haven't officially promoted either you or him. So we need to get that done. I drafted the press release yesterday. Just based on where we are in business and where we are in growth, we need to do a little bit of restructuring. It just makes sense to pull you two into the C-suite more firmly. So he's going to talk about business development, and from a lot of the same perspectives: business development, what it means to a small business, how he teams with large businesses, how he recruits, how he writes a proposal. So that'll be next week at the same time, same bat channel. So have a great day and have a great week. Thanks, Oliver.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Bye-bye.